Hello, everyone. So glad to see all of you here today for another intentional hiking event. I'm pleased to have a friend and fellow thru hiker here tonight, Mary Fireweed Kwart. So you'll hear us talking about these other names. So Fireweed, my name's Shira. So these are trail names. For those of you who aren't long distance hikers, you may be asking, like, why are we referring people to these third names? But there are trail names. So a little background on that. But we're here tonight to hear from Fireweed about elder hiking tips and tricks. So Mary achieved her lifelong goal of completing the Pacific Crest Trail in 2010 after hiking it in sections since 1976. She's a very accomplished backpacker, and I know she'll share some of her other trips with us tonight, but some of those include the Colorado Trail, Arizona Trail, Grand Enchantment Trail, Bigfoot Trail, and Oregon Desert Trail, and more. So she's definitely an inspiration, and I'm excited to have her here today to share her suggestions with you about how to hike comfortably as an older hiker. So I'm your host, Renee Shira Patrick, and I'm an addicted long distance hiker who discovered the amazing and empowering feeling of spending extended time in nature 22 years ago with my first thru hike on the Appalachian Trail. I created this event series to help myself and others in the hiking community, like you, develop a culture of thoughtfulness and intention about the time we spend outside on trails. I'm also a long distance trail consultant who's looking to improve the hiking experience for all of this. And this series is part of that effort. So thank you for being here tonight. So a few housekeeping items. Please use the chat throughout the event or your emojis. You can share your reactions, any comments you have as we go. Next, please keep your video on or plan to turn it on during the conversation portion of tonight. So I think we're here to learn about the topic, but I also want us to create community and get to know each other. So I think when we get to conversations, having your video on will help in creating those connections. And next, I wanted to thank another long distance hiker, Carrot Top here, who's going to be providing back-end support. So very grateful to have her assistance tonight. So I'm going to get started with tonight's event flow, give you an idea of what to expect. So first I'm going to give an introduction, and then we're going to hear from Fireweed on all of the tips and experiences she has to share with you tonight. After that, we're going to have some book giveaways from thru-hiker and author Mary Medicare Pastor Davison about her adventures backpacking. And she started her hiking adventures after she was 60 years old. So very impressive. Then we're going to get into the conversation portion of tonight, and we'll break into small groups for about 15 minutes. And then finally, we'll wrap up. So the whole event will take an hour to an hour and a half total. Now, for those of you who are joining for the first time, each intentional hiking event will be focused on one of the following themes: do, learn, create, be, and a regional focus. So this one tonight is a B event, focused on how to be comfortable and successful as an older hiker. I'm bringing you all together through these events because I believe that we are a powerful force for change. Beyond developing an intentional hiking practice in our own personal trail experiences, I think the impacts and effects of our actions can help influence the world around us. So now I have a couple questions for you. So let's see a raise of hands. You can either real hands if you're on camera or your emoji hands. How many of you have changed your style of hiking as you have gotten older? I know I definitely have. I see some other hands out there, yes. Now, share in the chat, if you can, what, if any, barriers or challenges have you faced when trying to hike your backpack now as an older hiker. So are there any specific challenges that you've faced? I think I know personally I've had some injuries that are starting to crop up, and I know, let's see, what are some of the answers coming through? Yeah, having weight when you're backpacking, injuries, things like that. And finally, this is another one for the chat. What tips do you have to stay comfortable with these challenges, or other tips you'd like to share with the group? So I want to encourage you all to continue sharing as you think of them throughout the event. I know Mary has a lot to share with us, but you may have something specific that works for you that she may not touch on. And so following the event, I'm going to compile all of these tips and suggestions and include them in a blog post that I'll email to you after the fact with the recording of this video, so that you can reference them and say, oh, what was that one tip someone suggested? So I think this can be a repository of all of your experiences and all of your knowledge. So I'm excited to learn from you all. And like I said, I have a lot to learn. So I'm still relatively young. I just turned 47 last week, but I've also started experiencing changes in my body since I started hiking over 20 years ago. I developed a nasty case of plantar fasciitis a few years ago, and I took everything I could to heal. I went to PT, I got all these different treatments, and I was very diligent and aggressive for about 6 months to try to address this. Unfortunately, I was able to hike again without pain, but it really made me start wondering, what would I do if I can't use my feet, or if it's too painful to use my feet? So I know as we get older, injuries happen, overuse happens, and the years simply compile so that we need to change some of the ways we move through the world so that we can continue to do what we love as long as possible. I've met countless hikers out there who have always dreamed of hiking a long trail, but had to wait until retirement to do so. And then other hikers who are not interested in a thru hike, but simply want to be able to move down the trail with minimal pain. So with that, let's get to the main event. I want to leave plenty of time for Mary to share her tips with us for the questions you might have for her after the presentation. So please hang on to those questions and let's hear all the wisdom Mary has to share with us. So with that, Mary, I will pass it on to you.
Here we go. This is a picture of me and my hiking partner in Scotland in 2011. We were doing the Great Glen Way, but we thought it was funny that they had this sign in Scotland that said elderly people crossing. So they were like basically looking. This is actually along the Great Glen Way in Scotland that you can climb Ben Nevis, and it's really cool. So if anything like piques your interest or anything like that, just go ahead and put it in the chat. I've been backpacking since I was 2000, since I was 19. And here you see a picture of me on the John Muir Trail in 1980 with my 65-pound pack, my Frostline kit, 7.5-pound tent, and there was no such thing as trekking poles back then. So I used a stick that I picked up along the way. Also, I want to apologize ahead of time for people. I'm trying to go in between people that have a lot of experience and maybe people that are just starting out. So I apologize for people that are really experienced. If you just bear with me, and I'm going to get to other tips and tricks for you maybe as I go along. But some of the stuff may be pretty basic for people that have been hiking for a long time. And let's do a shout out to all the people, the older people that have been on the trail in the past. Grandma Gatewood, the first female thru hiker for the Appalachian Trail. And let me see here. I'm going to try to hide the thumbnails. And so she was the first female thru hiker in 1955. Amazing person. the first lightweight hiker. She actually used a shower curtain to take her gear in, and she hiked in Keds, those old-fashioned, shoes that people used to do basketball with. And of course, people from all over the ancient Brit, from Britain, and then Captain America and Billy Goat, some of the iconic long distance hikers, my friends who I've hiked with here in Oregon. And then at 85, this guy Dale here, graybeard adventurer, he broke the record, third world record to become the oldest person to hike the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim. So just a shout out. I mean, we're there always behind the scenes, really. So planning, let's start with planning. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, which some of you may remember, in planning for battle, I've always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. So let's get into there. I always check the weather. I always have a weather app on my phone. I use a phone a lot, and I have apps on it to find out what the weather is going to do in my area. And with the National Weather Service, you can look at specific weather for your area. So I know that people put in your favorite app, in chat, what you want to do, what you use to like look at weather. And also snow conditions. If you're worried about snow conditions, you can get snow conditions from the Natural Resource and Climate Center. So I always do this too. And now there's some websites and a lot of listservs, you can find a lot of this information online from people that are actually hiking. Hard copy maps. This is kind of out of style now, but as an older person who's been hiking for 54 years, I'm used to hiking with hard copy maps. I use apps on my phone, but I also use hard copy maps because the phone apps do not show me the entire big picture of where I am. So what if I have to evacuate because of a fire? What if I get injured and I have to go to a road? And so I use hard copy maps a lot. I use a lot of street atlases to show me the general where the highways are and the roads are and the dirt roads are, and I make copies of them. And I also use I go into Avenza and I use U.S. Forest Service maps that are digital now online. Motor vehicle maps from the Forest Service have the most updated roads, which I found out that the new Forest Service maps are not that up to date. And I've gotten stuck in hiking, thinking that the trail was where it was, but it wasn't, because there was a clear cut by the Forest Service cutting timber, and it totally eradicated the trail, but didn't show it, on their maps. So also digital maps. I use a lot of digital maps and apps. I really use Gaia a lot on my phone, and that's a subscription service. It's a monthly subscription service. And then for the individual trails that I go on, sometimes they're on this app called Far Out Guides. And I know a lot of people know about Far Out Guides and stuff, but I just wanted to give a shout out for them. They also, I'm a member. I'm on the board of the Bigfoot Trail Alliance, and the Bigfoot Trail is a trail that goes about 380 miles in Northern California, from the Central Valley over to the coast. And so Far Out Guides has an app for the Bigfoot Trail. And one thing that, if you have a list of stuff that you do before you hike, put in there, download all your maps before leaving home, because I have often forgotten and then gotten to some place in the middle of nowhere, not good cell service, and not being able to download the maps. So that's a tip there. Also Gaia GPS, you can plan your trips out, the trips that you do yourself. I lead trips for the local backpacking group, and I put them on Gaia, and then I make PDF files that I can send to people via email. This guy right here is you got to check out this guy's PCT trail journal from 2006. It's the most watched trail journal for the PCT. It's on trailjournals.com. And this guy was a triathlete in 1990, and he's transitioned over to long distance hiking. His name is Chucky V, and his other trail name is Rubber Chucky. But this is his plan. And then I'm totally behind this, as an older person. My plan is to have no plan. I plan, if a rainy day descends, I plan to sleep all day. If a snowfield stops me, I plan to backtrack. If a side trip looks more interesting, I'll side with it. If I need a rest day or 3, I will take them. I suppose if there's any blueprint I'd like to adhere to is to start as slow as I can possibly go and then gradually ease up. And so I think that this is like the clarion call for older hikers. This guy has it down. Okay, so what do we want to do about staying found on the trail? I use a Garmin satellite device, and there's Garmin messengers, and I would really recommend that older people actually buy one of these devices, or else if you have an Apple iPhone from iOS 14 and above, you can do 911 emergency calls via satellite. And then Android is going to come up to this pretty soon. And then iOS 18 can do texting to all your friends via satellite. So that's what I use the Garmin InReach for. I have it as a backup for being able to send messages out to people where I am that day. Everything I have. If anybody has any other ideas about this, put it in the chat for sure. And before you use your satellite messaging, you need to make sure your device is connected before your trip, and then upload all your important contacts and any help info for emergency services. I use a lot of auto text on my Garmin InReach, so that people won't be looking for a communication from me after I'm off the trail. So I say I'm off the trail and safe. You will receive no more location messages. Also, I also put in the phone numbers of motel rooms and motels into the Garmin so that I can say, hey, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to be delayed, and you can communicate with people as you walk around on your trail. And the cell phone, this is something new for me, is that your cell phone may show no service, but you may still be able to call 911. I would say try to call 911 on your cell phone, even if you have no service, because some of the providers work with each other to be able to provide service for 911 calls. I use a GPS device. This is kind of like out of favor these days, but I use it because I've just been used to using it before the advent of the satellite devices. It uses a lot less battery than phones do. And you can load the 24K topo maps onto them. And you may have to pay for downloading of maps by region. The unit itself is expensive, but there's no monthly fee like there is for the Garmin communicating devices. It doesn't, it has no communication via text, phone, or email. But I've used this a lot. If I'm doing trails where I'm not quite sure, if I have to do a lot of cross country, I use one of these devices a lot. And here, people don't think about this, but there's nothing wrong with turning around. I mean, we're not out there as older people to set the next record for hiking, for doing the number of miles per day or whatever we're doing. Just, where you've been, so you can turn around and go back. This is something that can be used all the time. There's no shame in it. And even if you use all of the technology, bells and whistles, I always leave an itinerary with my friend or relative, and I always include my travel to the trailhead. I will include what motels I'm staying at, what Airbnbs I'm staying at, so that they can track me through the entire trip, not just on the trail. Permits, probably a lot of you know this, but if you do any hiking in California, you need a campfire permit. And so this means for the whole Sierra, you need a campfire permit, and they're free. You can go to that online website and readyforwildfire.org to get one. Even if you're using a backpacking stove in a developed campground, you need a campfire permit for hiking in California if you have any plans to hike in the Sierras. And this is the number one thing. Get your senior pass if you're over 62. It's $80, lifetime senior pass. You get half price off all kinds of trailheads, all kinds of campgrounds. It's really been a godsend for me to have this for just camping on the trailheads before I hit the trail. Physical preparation. These are a picture of boots that I wore for 20 years as I was a firefighter. And I did a lot of hiking when I was fighting fire, but this is the kind of boots I was wearing. And so they're not exactly hiking boots. They have high heels because they're logger boots. They have high heels and they have narrow toes, just like wearing high heels. So as a result of wearing these shoes for 20 years, I actually developed some foot problems. And so I'm not saying that you're going to develop these foot problems, but just be aware of the stuff that you've done in your life and anticipate problems that you might have to troubleshoot later. And make sure that you walk when you plan, and you get ready for your trip, make sure that you walk with the amount of weight that you're going to be carrying and the same shoes you're going to be wearing. And my troubleshooting for my foot, because I got this Morton's neuroma, because my front toes were so smashed in, I need to wear toe spacers now in my shoes. Even if I wear wide toe back shoes, I have to wear toe spacers. And then also falls. The someone said that they were concerned about falls, is that they are the number one cause of injury for older people. This is the number one thing that happens to me on trails now. I fall. I will fall and face plant with my pack on. And I was trying to look for some ways to get around this. You can go online and find out ways to strengthen this muscle, the tibialis anterior in the front of your foot, so that you actually lift up your foot so you don't trip. I mean, I trip a lot more now because I'm not lifting up the front of my foot to be able to get over obstacles. So, and also something else that happened to me was you don't hear about, nobody tells you about this. It's like everybody goes through posterior vitreous detachment in their eye. Your eye, the vitreous dries up as you get older. Happens to everybody. 85% of the people, no problem. 15% of the people, like me, when I was hiking on the Continental Divide Trail, above 10,000 feet, I start getting the symptoms of floaters, flashes, and all this other kind of stuff. And I go, that's kind of weird. And so I Googled what was happening to me when I got to cell service on the top of the ridge. And it said, whoa, you're having posterior vitreous detachment. Get down to an optometrist or an ophthalmologist immediately. Luckily, the next day I was going into a town. And so I went to a hospital and they sent me to an ophthalmologist and I was diagnosed with this posterior vitreous detachment. And I basically had to fly home because if I would have waited a couple weeks, the change in elevation from flying, I would have not been able to do it because your vitreous, when it detaches, it takes off part of your retina. It can. So I immediately flew home. It was cool. I just bided my time, went back to the ophthalmologist. And then, yeah, so this is something that's very common. Nobody talks about it. It may happen to you. So I'm just kind of bringing this up as something that may happen to everybody. Just look for floaters and flashes, when you're moving your eyes around. Drink water is very important. This is a sign at Arches National Park when I was there hiking on the Hayduke Trail. And I thought, oh, this is a funny sign, drink water, but you'll feel better. It's true. It helps everything. It helps your heart health. It helps thin your blood. It has so many ramifications, and it's something that we don't think about a lot because we're paranoid about maybe drinking too much water, so I just mainly carry enough water so I can just drink whenever I feel like it. Another thing too is in the mornings I usually drink some vitamin, some 1,000 the emergency. I put that in my water and I drink it all during the day for immune stuff. And then something interesting I just found out, I went and got a blood test with my doctor. I am vitamin D deficient. And I get outside. You know why we can be vitamin D deficient when we're older? Because we're wearing sunscreen and we're wearing long sleeve clothes. We're wearing we're wearing everything is long sleeve and we're covering up our faces. We're using sunscreen. Vitamin D deficiency can be happening because vitamin D actually protects us from osteoporosis and supports our immune system. So I would say, cover up from the sun, but go get yourself a vitamin D test. You might have to take a supplement. So, and then also I carry Aleve and for pain medication, Benadryl for allergies, for running into um, bee nest and stuff like that. Okay, here's another big tip of mine, this Thermacare heat wrap. Okay, in the morning when I start hiking, I will take my ibuprofen or something of choice like that. And then at night, when I'm going overnight, I will use this Thermacare heat wrap. It only weighs 2.1 ounces. You can get them at every single drugstore. I put it on, it makes heat in your lower body, and it totally has helped me get over lower back pain while hiking. So I really recommend this Thermacare heat wrap. And also, I want to say that I'm not paid by any of these people to do any kind of like advertising or anything like that. But this is just something that I have personally used. And it's really been a lifesaver for me for backpacking, for carrying a pack. The pack rests on your lower back. You may have some problems with that because you're not walking with a pack that rests on your lower back for your entire day. Also, there's these balls that are really lightweight. You can buy them. They're called Rology balls, and you can use them to massage your calf muscles. And here's Mary Davison, who is on this, and she will hear from her later. I really want a proponent of using oops, where am I here? Yeah, using ways to keep the weight off of the main part of your body. And so you can increase arm activity by using hiking poles, and they help with climbing potential. And then I walked with a orthopedic nurse for a while on the Continental Divide Trail, and he was saying, yeah, this really takes the weight off of your knees. And something that I've just found, I used to be someone who would just scoff at this kind of thing, but now I bought a 1-pound backpacking chair that I carry. It gets small. It gets so small. It's like the size of a small water bottle. And I carry it. I love this thing because it keeps me from having to sit on the ground with the rocks and looking for the logs and stuff like that. Number one tip too is don't let your brain write a check your body can't cash. And I just did this recently in a 6-day trip I did in the Superstition Wilderness. It seems funny, but we all do this, especially if they're overachievers from our past life. I actually had a 6-day backpacking trip and I got shingles. I got shingles while I was in the middle of the backpacking trip. So I'm saying I never got the shingles vaccine because I never thought I had chickenpox when I was a kid. No, 99% of everybody our age has the shingles virus in their in their body. And so what you think may be what is a usual thing that you've done in your past may be a trigger now for lowering your immune system so that a virus can come out. So I say carry antiviral drugs, get the vaccine, or if you don't want the vaccine, carry antiviral drugs. Mental prep, I don't think I need to go through this very much because we're old and we're tough. As we all know, getting old is not for sissies. And so, you know about kind of like dealing with things and making sure that things are okay and planning and taking what you need. So when I was on a fire crew, this is what they handed out to all the newbie firefighters, saying that you're going to be filthy, exhausted, underfed, and hurting. we may experience this on the trail, but I think that we know how to deal with it better. So staying entertained and sane, I download I really do a lot of looking at YouTube videos and stuff when I'm actually on the trail. My I don't sleep very well on the trail. I don't sleep very well after I've exercised for a lot. And so I look at a lot of books on tape, and I download streaming service videos and movies. And now I carry a portable power bank charger, 5 to 20,000 milliamps. They're the size of a cell phone. Um, and they have really helped me. Paring down gear weight. I started in 1984. I did the Pacific Crest Trail through Oregon. I carried a 7.5 pound tent that I actually sewed myself from a Frostline kit. And now I carry a 2 pound Big Agnes Fly Creek tent. So you can pare down your gear weight. And I'm not going to go through all of the ways to pare down your gear weight. You can go online and just see YouTube videos of older people who have gear reviews. I would really recommend going to treelinereview.com to see if you want to buy some new gear. They have great reviews done by backpackers, and they will tell you the straight scoop. And then if you want to pare down your gear weight, start with your shelter system and pack and the most heavy stuff first. And I bought a luggage weight scale to be able to help, to weigh my pack. As far as clothes go, you can multi-purpose with everything. Like this guy on the Appalachian Trail we were on, he was using a garbage bag as his rain skirt. I use a buff a lot, and the buffs have very many uses. My own progression from hiking has been from using these Merrell Moabs were at 30 ounces, and now I use Ultra Lone Peaks, a lot less weight. And also I found that there's a myth of ankle support. When I was using shoes that were supposedly giving me ankle support, what really happened is when I got tired, my ankle would twist, and the top high point on the ankle on the shoe would actually make my ankle twist. Whereas opposed, Ultra Lone Peaks, there's no material up there by your ankle, so you recover a lot better and you don't twist your ankle. Don't score in the dollar store. We have a dollar store here in Ashland, and I go there. Okay, you can find some good stuff there. And then look into no cooking alternatives. I still use a stove because I believe a stove is a emergency equipment, and it's I use it for heating water. If I'm in a really cold, there's all of a sudden it starts to snow. It's a way to heat water. So for me, a stove is a way to have a safety device. But a lot of people do the no cooking alternates, and you can look on Google to find out about that. I also dry a lot of my food in my food dryer. Food protection, this is a point of contention for many people. I carry an ability to hang my food from bears. Do I do it all the time? No. I frankly, I have been approached by a bear while hanging my food. And so what I tell people to do is use the canister. If you're in a bear area and you're in an area that has a lot of bears, and then you have to have food protection because the agency is telling you to do it, get a canister and use it. Do not rely on hanging your food. It's a pain in the butt, and the bears know you are hanging your food. And like me, the bear came up through the meadow and approached me while I was hanging my food. I had to stop, and I ran over there, and I just said, "Hey, this is my food. It's not your food." And the bear looked really sheepish and stuff, and it ran away. But I'm not saying that you should do that. But I could just tell from the bear's body language that it wasn't being aggressive. It just knew that on the trail that I was on, the bears there were used to coming up to people, and people would be hanging their food. People would freak out, throw the food bag away and the bears would take it away. That was the behavior. It was actually the Lower Rogue Trail here in Oregon. So, but I do hang the food when I have to, but I use a canister whenever it's absolutely necessary. Um, I've had problems as I get older with elevation. One year we were hiking up to the top of Mount Whitney, from the east side of the Sierras. No problem whatsoever. Hike up to the top of Mount Whitney, go down. The next year I do the Colorado Trail. I'm above 10,000 feet within 2 days of flying over to Denver. And I had immediately really mild elevation sickness where I was feeling really crummy. I couldn't sleep. And I never felt so bad. I mean, it was the Colorado Trail is gorgeous. Why was I feeling so bad going through these meadows? It's because I went from 2,000 feet at Ashland up to 10,000 feet, and I stayed in 10,000 feet hiking the Colorado Trail. So I would say be really aware of that. It can happen to you anytime, no matter how in shape of a hiker you are and how you've been in the past. Wildfires, I really want to emphasize wildfire safety. That you never go through an emergency closure. It's a $5,000. If you see these closures posted, do not try to go through them. I think that we as a group of older people will be less likely to do this as opposed to younger people. But it's serious. As a firefighter, I was a firefighter for 30 years. We do not want to have to stop firefighting to be able to go rescue hikers or people that were warned about being on the trail and are still there anyway. You can find out about fires on inceweb.gov. These are the fires that are become really big and they go to the national website. This is good, but this is the best tip. You've got to download this Watch Duty app to your phone. It gives you local updates on fire location and evacuation stuff. And it's staffed by volunteers who have been firefighters in the past. It's a nonprofit. It's a free app. You can pay for other kind of stuff that they do, but the basic app is free. I go in here and see if I hear the local fire department responding to a fire here in Ashland, I go to the Watch Duty app and see what's going on because they will report everything, all the needed evacuation information. And also, if you are totally out of cell service and you have one of those satellite devices, send a text message to your friend to get on this app to see what's really going on. So I really recommend it. Also, smoke is very bad for people as we get older. I actually got firefighter retirement. I was a firefighter for 30 years. I got firefighter retirement, and the reason why I got firefighter retirement, which all firefighters get, is because of the smoke inhalation problems and causing trouble later in life. So you do not want to be around on the trail when the smoke is bad. And I download these apps on my phone, Air Now, Purple Air, Air Visual. And you can also look at this visibility index if you don't have the app. If you can't, distance you can see is only 5 miles. If you're age 65 and over, you minimize your outdoor activity. So you just don't keep plowing along. Bears, I have a lot of, everybody has experience with bears. The bear print was from the Pacific Crest Trail in Washington. Quite a large bear there. But what I found through all the 54 years I've been doing hiking, I have never had an encounter with a bear. I have never had an encounter where the bear came up to me in the middle of the night and wanted to rip open my tent. The animals are smart. They want to use the minimum amount of effort in order to get the maximum amount of food or anything back for them. And so they're not going to rip into your tent to get your bag of Cheetos or whatever, and so that like the bear at the Lower Rogue knew that I had all of my food in my that was hanging, in my stuff sack. And he knew I would just throw that away and he'd have immediately all this food. They want the least amount of hassle for the most amount. So I would say you need to take care of your food in bear country. And so you store all items in approved storage containers. I do not recommend the earth sack, although I've seen bears actually get into the earth sack. The earth sack is tied up to a tree. I've seen bears actually maul the earth sack and like rip it open and get food. I don't recommend it. I recommend a canister. And for us, you maybe, I mean, someone was concerned about camping and being alone out there. Just do not camp next to the road or places that have you can see there's places where people have fire rings. You know, don't do that. I made the mistake of that on Southern California on the Pacific Crest Trail. All night, people are partying. They're they don't go very far when they're partying, but still I'm in my tent and I'm going, oh my God, what's happening here? You know, and so maybe Mary Davison could speak more to this, but I just usually steer clear of camping and the dispersed sites on roads. Rattlesnakes, you will encounter one. This is what they look like. They have like triangular heads. They're not gopher snakes that have like heads that it just goes straight to their body. Um, I have encountered these many times. They are gentlemen and gentlewomen, and they make their rattle, and they rattle, and they let you know. So I sit there and I go, where are they? Are they walking across? Are they going across the trail? Let them go. Just stand there. Can I get around them and way away from them? Yes, I will do that. Otherwise, I would just let them go. You know, I would let them go and do their thing. I have had scorpions come into the tent and be in my so you want to make sure that your tent is zipped up at night. Um, permethrin, I use permethrin spray on my clothes and I use head net too. Yellow jackets, I've actually rescued Pacific Crest Trail hikers who were attacked by yellow jackets on the Pacific Crest Trail. The yellow jackets have their nests in the ground. And so when you walk by them, you can scuff open their nests and all of a sudden they all come out. I would really recommend that you carry Benadryl with you and if you are allergic to bee stings, that you carry Benadryl and you carry something like Sting Kill or just know what your situation is for yellow jackets because these are probably the worst, especially in dry climate like we have right now. Lightning, make sure that you stay in the Colorado Trail. You couldn't do this. You couldn't get. You had to be above 10,000 feet with no trees. So I was always looking out for play when the lightning storms would come every afternoon. I would go and look for um, um, brush that I could run down to and hunker down in while the lightning storm was happening. But and also lightning doesn't always get the tallest tree in the area. It can sometimes go to other trees. So you have to make sure you're hunkered down for the lightning. I use an umbrella on the trail for wet weather um, because it helps me from being having to change my clothes a lot when bad weather starts happening. These are a good thing to carry. If you get cold, they're called smack packs. If you just you can carry them. They're available in a lot of outdoor stores, and they will warm up when you hit them because it makes the chemical reaction go. And you can stick them in your sleeping bag, or I used to put them in when I lived in Alaska. I used to put them in my shoes to keep my feet warm. Anything like that. They don't weigh very much. Separating zippers. I don't know if anybody here has been having the trouble with separating zippers when you're on the trail. I use these fix and zips. All you do when your zipper separates is you just put this thing on the zipper and it fixes it. I mean, it's just like you put it on the zipper, torque it down, zipper fixed. And then when you go into town or you can change out your tent or something like that, it's really, really good stuff. Okay, for women out there, I don't think men would use this so much, but I was tired of getting up in the middle of the night like 2 or 3 times to go to the bathroom to pee. I'm going, because I'm a bad sleeper anyway, getting up, oh my God, I never go back to sleep. So I carry a yogurt container, and I pee into that in the trail at night. And then in the day, I just empty it out, I clean it out, and everything. And I actually, after I clean it out, I can put my stove in here. So it has a multi-purpose effect. Um, Men, not so much. I was boasting about using this to some young guy hikers, and they said, "Oh, we just turn around and we just pee in the vestibule." And so it's like, okay. But anyway, I just want to say this. Rest and recuperation, make sure that you take enough days off. I know this is geared more to long distance hikers, but I take at least 2 0 days and not one. 1 0 day is not enough to do everything. I want a day to relax when I'm in town, to look at the sites, go to the museums, stuff like that. Okay, here's a really important thing. Consider supported hiking, which I have just started doing, where you get a taxi to take your gear and you just walk with a day pack from one place to the other. I just did the Camino Invierno in Spain, 180 miles. Wonderful. Just get up, stay at a hotel, have a great breakfast. The taxi gets your stuff, drops it off that night. You walk with your day pack. Wonderful. And these old dudes in the top pictures of them, they're Russian pilgrims. And I downloaded that picture from, I think I was listening to a Tolstoy story. But anyway, pilgrimages have been around a long time. They're ways that people hike, and there's been a whole support system grown up around them for hundreds of years. And so the Camino Invierno in Spain is one of these. Not very many people, not like the Camino Frances. Don't go to Camino Frances, not good. 12 other Caminos. And also in Japan, I went to this Kamano Kodo pilgrimage, this Buddhist pilgrimage. Food is fabulous, incredible. So consider supported hiking. Um, but also, final tip, go with a clear, open, and accepting spirit. Thank you to um, Australian Aborigines for this saying, shout out to them. Go with a clear, open, and accepting spirit, and the country will not treat you badly. So, and also, if you're retired and you have time to volunteer with trail organizations, or to give input to land management organizations, please think about doing that. Your input is important. Every time I used to write environmental policy decisions, and your input, if you get in touch with the forest person in the Forest Service or the Park Service, your input has to be addressed in the final document. It's important, so do that. But still leave enough time for enjoying everything. So I know I went through this very fast, and it's hard to see what people's reaction are, but just don't hesitate to get in touch with me at my email down here to if any information, and this will be all on the website, and you can look at it again. So okay, that's it. Stop sharing. Stop share. Okay, sorry, I went way over.
No, that's great, Mary. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And like Mary said, we're going to have a copy of her slides as well, that we'll send out, because there was a lot of information, a lot of links you may want to reference later on, along with some of those suggested tips that you all shared. I learned something I never knew about that fix it zipper thing. And, there's lots of little tips that I'm definitely going to look into and use. And the eye detached eye condition, that's concerning. But I want to open it up to y'all in the audience. You're welcome to come off mute, or you can type it into the chat if you have any questions or comments for Mary. Open floor.
Oh, I see someone went to watch duty. There was intermission on the Interlaken fire. Yeah, watch duty. If you get nothing else from this presentation, download watch duty to your phone. So
Yeah, I just started using it last year, and especially living, I mean, everywhere has fire danger now, and there's a couple fires raging. There's one in Colorado near Twin Lakes right now, and there's, yeah, a couple more around the
New
country.
Mexico, there's a big one in New Mexico.
The
Yeah,
interlocking fire in Twin Lakes is now 93% contained in the
oh,
trail,
good.
Good.
so it's very exciting.
Yes,
Yeah,
Watch Duty will let you know about that. And also, if you're in a place like a couple of years ago, there was a huge fire in Northern California, and Facebook is all every big fire has a Facebook page, and you can find out more about it on there.
so any questions out there? Sounds like a lot of appreciation for all the tips, Mary.
I know it's a little too much, but it was like 4 hours for the stuff. I
Right.
really
So Mary's normal presentation is much, much longer. So yeah, if you're interested in more detail, again, I think we have her email address in the chat and I'll include it in the follow-up. So I'm sure, yeah, and she often will do talks at REI or different things. So there's definitely ways to follow up and get more information if you want. Well, I think I'll continue on because we have another Mary here with some fabulous information to share with us. So thank you so much, Fireweed, for sharing everything with us today. So I want to say, Mary mentioned she's on the board of the Bigfoot Trail Alliance. So they are also the nonprofit partner that some of you donated to when you were registering. So Mary hiked the Bigfoot Trail, and like I said, is a board member. So if you aren't familiar, this is 360 to 80 miles long, and it traverses the Klamath Mountains of Northwest California and briefly Southwest Oregon. So the establishment of this route will lead to a deeper understanding and awareness of this corner of California. So in essence, it was created to promote greater future sustainability for the botanical wonderland along this route. The major focus is on conifer diversity. So when you're hiking, you'll pass 32 different species of conifer along the trail. It also goes through 6 wilderness areas, 1 national park, and 1 state park. So through all of your donations, you raise $82 for the Bigfoot Trail Alliance. So thank you so much. That's actually a record for the series so far. So thank you all for donating. So now we're going to transition to the giveaway portion of the event. And as you may have seen during registration, you'll have an opportunity to win. Let me share my screen. One of 2 books written by thru-hiker Mary Medicare Pastor Davidson. So Mary is also called the old lady on the trail, and she's proud of it. So Mary's a retired pastor and grandmother of 10. She began long distance backpacking at age 60 and completed her Triple Crown, which is the Appalachian Trail, Pacific Crest Trail, and Continental Divide Trail, 16 years later. So Mary's first book, Old Lady on the Trail, Triple Crown at 76, she shares the perspective of an aging adult. So I actually got to meet Mary on the Continental Divide Trail. We were both out there in 2015. And I remember a wonderful early morning conversation with her in the woods of Montana. So really excited to circle back and have her on today. But before we have Mary here, she's going to say a few words. But her other book I wanted to mention is Aren't You Afraid? The American Discovery Trail from the Atlantic Ocean to Nebraska. So this one, she holds nothing back as she explains, you know, life experiences and a lot of reflections on fear and overcoming fear about being a solo woman hiking the American Discovery Trail. So their teaser, she's working on the second half of the American Discovery Trail book, which will be out, I believe, later this year. So with that, I want to ask Mary to come on and say a few words about, you know, specific tips you have or your books or any wisdom you'd like to share with us.
Okay. The trouble is I can talk too much. Um, yes. I actually was trained by the Girl Scouts and then the Mountaineers when I was in my
Oh, sorry. I keep going. I wanted people to be able
am
to
I
see
good?
you.
When I was in my 20s. So I did have background um, wilderness training. There were marriages and there were children and there was working and there was a lot of stuff. So I came back to backpacking when I was 60, and I didn't realize all the changes that had happened between what I knew when I was 20 and what had happened in the meantime. Um, I'm not a through hiker. In hiker lingo, a through hiker, I think Shira was a through hiker. Um, where you start at the very, say, if you're doing the Pacific Crest Trail, you might start on Mexico and walk all the way to Canada in one go. I'm a long section hiker, and I kind of just pulled out of a hat somewhere between 300 and 400 miles is good for me. But I got into a way of doing 2 long sections a year. I'm a spring hiker and a fall hiker. And that's how I completed the long distance trails I have done. And in the United States, I have done the Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, the Continental Divide Trail, and I just got through with the American Discovery Trail, which goes coast to coast. I didn't do that. I didn't do any one of those in 1 year. I am 82, almost 83. I have 2 knee replacements, 2 shoulder replacements. My motor neuromas are gone, removed. I'm old. um, I come at things a little bit differently than Mary Kwart, who you just heard. I do plan. I plan carefully because I'm a section hiker, which on many trails has meant that I go somewhere on an airplane, get off the airplane, and start hiking. And I have a return airplane I need to catch. So I need to have some idea of what I'm doing. As an older hiker, I would suggest to everybody I see, start where you are and work to where you want to be. So I don't magically just go get on a trail and do 20-mile days. I rarely have done 20-mile days, but I know how much I can do. At least usually I pay attention to that and don't think of myself as a 20-year-old. You do have to realize what age you are, and by some practice and some walking, figuring out what you can do. And a tip for training is usually I would, if I'm planning to do long distance hiking in the year, I will start out in January and I'll walk. I've been sitting around in November and December. Training is gone. I need to get back into it. I will start with 4 blocks. Wow, I started. Okay, that's the beginning. Add a couple blocks. Then you're up to 6 blocks. Then, that's more than half a mile. You just don't start like you would as a 20-year-old. You start as you are as an older person. I started long distance hiking then at age 60 with the Wonderland Trail. And I noticed, I mean, I didn't know anything about lightweight hiking at that point. My daughter and I started on the Appalachian Trail because they were on the East Coast. And I see all these people with these tiny little packs. And I start learning. Old Lady on the Trail is about that process and about me doing 3 national scenic trails, the AT, the PCT, and the CDT. It's not a how-to book, it's a how-did book. But I will pretty much guarantee that if you read it, you'll learn something. a lot of somethings probably. Now, I would say that Mary Kwart and I do some things differently because I do plan carefully. Almost, excuse me, almost all the time, I hit my plans. Well, then I fall back on things I learned as a mountaineer. You know, what do you do when you don't get out when you are planning to? And some of that is in this last book that I'm writing right now, because in Nevada, I could not get through the Arc Dome Wilderness as planned. I do have Garmin inReach. My son is the one, he's on a computer all day anyway. And so he's my person who I tune in every day, and he follows my dots, or at least checks them off and on during the day. And my support person, who was supposed to meet me coming out of the Arc Dome Wilderness, was a little freaked out, although she was a mountaineer too, but she was not where she could get reception in her car. She had to drive quite a ways to get reception. Nevada's got a lot of nowhere that has none. And she called my son, and he looks on his computer and he says, well, she's still moving. The dot's still moving. He could see it on a computer better than she could on her Garmin. She'll be out today. And I was. So there is reason not to panic if someone doesn't get out. But if you have someone who's following you, your support person can check and find out, and everything can be cool. Poles, yes, indeed, use poles. And if you want to check and see if that really makes a difference, my scales are next to a counter. Try getting a stay weight, putting, you know, some of your weight on that counter, and you'll see right away that you take 10 pounds off at least, just with a little bit of pushing down on that counter when you get on a scale. If you wonder if they actually do something, yes, they do. I wrote down some notes here. I keep looking over here. Falls, yes, I have fallen. I have done a bad fall on the trail that I'm sure did some damage to my brain. Doing a face plant, going downhill, not a good thing. I have also fallen into my garage and took a header into my freezer door, leaving a dent. That also did some damage. It's not a lot of damage. I still function, but do realize that you need to work on balance. And even if you do, the ground under you can shift, and falling downhill is the last thing you want to do. Way back when I was in the Mountaineers, you learn to belay people, and which is a more complicated process than the movies would let you show you. And as you fall, you exponentially build up force. And so even if you only fall down, say, 3 feet, 4 feet in front of you going downhill, you are putting an enormous amount of force on whatever body part hits. It's not just your body that's falling, or even just your body with the pack, as if that's all the weight force that's there. It's more than that. So do be careful. The second book, Aren't You Afraid, is about the American Discovery Trail, and that's one almost nobody knows about, which is why I wrote the book. I believe it's a better book, but it doesn't sell as well because everybody wants to do the AT, the PCT, and the CBT, or the Colorado Trail, or a few of the others that are national scenic trails. The American Discovery Trail goes coast to coast, and you might notice we don't have a mountain range that goes coast to coast. So it's not a wilderness trail. It's been around for a long time. It is a waymarked trail. It is not a trail marked on the ground in most places. I learned how to knock on doors and ask for a place to put my tent at night for the first half of the American Discovery Trail. I now have friends all the way from the Atlantic Ocean to Denver, and more friends beyond that, because I do hike supported, or I plan that I'm not carrying more than 5 days food at a time. It requires planning, even if you're hiking east and west in the United States. And as you get to the west, there's lots of places that are challenging, particularly Nevada, Utah. There's some very, the Hayduke Trail is a trail a lot of advanced hikers do. And there's at least one place that it is not so advanced, and I was on it too, because it was part of the CDT, I mean the ADT. You can do all kinds of things. And if you have to have surgery for knee replacements or shoulder replacement, I planned them so that they would be in the winter. And I followed my PT. I am a PT as well as a pastor, and I pay attention to my PT, and I work very hard for recovery. And I just know I can still go. I can't go like I could when I was 20. I'm not going to climb Mount Rainier anymore. I did do that. But if you find out what you can do, then you can plan what you want to do so that it's in bite-sized pieces you can handle. Sometimes you do have to have an alternate route because of a fire. I did that in Montana. I think that, I can't remember if that was the year before I think I met Renee. But you do have to be flexible and think is here. But it's only your best piece of equipment if you use it.
I think that's wonderful, Mary, all of that. And I'm excited for folks to read that in your book as well. I think, you know, there's a lot of great stories that I know people will hear, but also the wisdom.
My third book should be out this fall. It's basically written, but there's a lot of process to getting a book out, and it's in process. So
that's fabulous. We're going to share.
That's probably enough. That's enough for me to talk, because I can talk forever.
Well, so appreciate you coming on, Mary, and sharing that and participating. I want to make sure we have time for the giveaways and everything else, but sure. Mary will be sticking around, both Marys, in the conversation portion, which we'll get to in just a few minutes. But first, we're going to give away the Old Lady on the Trail book. So this question is going to be subjective. So get into the chat. There's no right or wrong answers. Type your answer in and I'll pick someone to win. So the question is, what is one thing you learned about today that you want to do on your next hike or before your next hike? So something you learned that you want to implement. So go ahead and type your answers into the chat and I'll pick one of you to win the Old Lady on the Trail Triple Crown at 76. So we have work on balance. We have the Zip Fix It. Someone else out there learned about the Zip Fix It for the first time. That it's okay to take 0 days. Yes, that's a huge one. Like rest, I think is as important as the hiking days. Rest days allow us to do those hiking days. Yeah. Any other answers out there? I'll give you another minute to weigh in. Yeah, I think balance, something I do for balance is yoga. And again, I'm not retired, but I think my goal is to keep moving. Just, don't stop, keep moving, keep the flexibility up. Um, Jill says it's okay to turn around. That's really good, to just accept that that's okay. Oh, check YouTube channels for advice. That's a good one. Yeah, and tips for what to pack even for day hikes. Yes, all of you out there might not be all through hikers. You might be day hikers, which is, you can apply a lot of this to day hiking as well. So tips on protein, first aid supplies, lots of water. Oh yes, the Watch Duty app. That's a great one as well. So I'm going to go ahead and pick a winner. I'm going to go with good tips for what to pack even for day hikes. So Linda, thank you for that. I think that applies to all of us, what to carry, especially those first aid and the drinking water. So Linda, you'll be winning a copy of Old Lady on the Trail, Triple Crown at 76. So with that, let's get to the second giveaway. This is going to be for a copy of Aren't You Afraid? American Discovery Trail from the Atlantic Ocean to Nebraska. So this is another subjective question, so please type it into the chat. What is a fear you have about hiking into old age? So as Mary's title says, aren't you afraid? And she sort of goes into some of those fears. And I know this is a vulnerable question, but I think talking openly or sharing openly about these types of topics helps us understand we're not alone. And there's others that probably have the same concerns or fears that we have. And, appreciate Mary for sharing that in her book. And yeah, just curious, what do you fear? I know I fear, I'm not going to answer because I don't want to take away the winner from one of you, but not being able to walk anymore. That's my fear of like, will I be able to be, 80 and still hiking? So that's injury. So, oh yes, a hiking partner having a heart attack, that's definitely a real fear. Having a problem out of communication, definitely. But that's where these devices like the InReach, where it uses satellite, you are always in communication and you can text message or call for 911 even when you don't have cell service. So that's great. Someone else said, saying no to a hiking adventure because I'm feeling old and frail. Yeah. Physical injury without or a low battery Garmin, that can definitely be a concern. Car vandalism at the trailhead while on a day or overnight hike. Yeah, that's a fear. I still feel like excited and elated when I get back and I see, okay, my car's still there. The tires are still on. So yeah. Thank you everyone for sharing. I know sometimes it can be hard to do so. Reluctant to hike on our farm because no cell phone coverage there. Yes, that's definitely the communication is something that keeps coming up, being able to communicate if you need help. I'll give you one more second to weigh in and then I'm going to go ahead and pick someone to win this book. Yeah, I'm going to say, Jill, I'm going to pick Jill's for hiking partner getting injured. I think, we worry about our own injuries, but having, your partner, you're a best friend or a good friend or a, life partner, husband, wife, like that's definitely a fear as we get older and we're out there. Jill, we're going to send you a copy of Aren't You Afraid? So thank you so much, all of you, for sharing and yeah, for attending today.